the Shadowless one. My name is Ko Minthora, and I'm 41 years old, living on the outskirts of Yangon, Myanmar. For over 15 years, I've been a night shift taxi driver, cruising the dimly lit streets where the sodium lamps cast a sickly yellow glow on the wet asphalt after the rain. It's a simple life: wake up late in the morning, grab a black coffee and some breakfast, nap a bit more, and then hit the roads from evening until dawn. The tips are better at night, and the traffic isn't the nightmare it is during the day. I'm not the superstitious type. I don't buy into the ghost stories or folk tales that my fellow drivers spin while waiting for fares at roadside tea shops. To me, the wee hours are just quieter roads, easier drives, and the occasional odd passenger odd in the human way, like drunks or lovers mid-argument. That night it was around 2:47 a.m. I was driving along the old port road near the Hlaing River. The area is on the edge of the city, with sparse streets that feel forgotten after dark. Rain had just tapered off, leaving the pavement slick and shimmering under the faint yellow lights. The river ran parallel to the road, its water black and still, swallowing any light that dared touch it. I'd just dropped off a passenger at the old market, an elderly man who tipped decently despite his grumbling. Now, I was coasting slowly, scanning for the next fare. The radio played an old Burmese folk tune, the guitar strings buzzing faintly against the singer's raspy voice, crooning about homeland rivers. I lit a cigarette, cracked the window to let the smoke drift out, and thought about tomorrow's breakfast, maybe a steaming bowl of mohinga with egg and herbs from my usual spot. Out of the shadows on the roadside, a figure emerged, waving me down. I slowed and pulled over. It was a woman, dressed in a pale longya, maybe grey or faded white. Under the dim light, her long hair draped over half her face. She stood motionless, no urgency or fidgeting like most late-night riders, avoiding the rain. I unlocked the back door and called out in Burmese, "Where to, sister?" She stepped in without a word at first, settling into the back seat. The door closed softly, almost silently. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Her face was pale, eyes fixed on the window toward the river. "Where are you headed?" I asked again, keeping my tone steady. She whispered, "Old bridge, by the river." Just for words, I nodded, started the engine, figuring she was tired from a late shift or dealing with some personal drama. Night passengers are often like that, quiet, lost in thought. The car rolled forward, tires hissing on the wet road. The street was deserted, no other vehicles in sight. Rain pattered lightly on the roof, mixing with the river's distant murmur. The sodium lamps threw long, distorted shadows across the peeling walls, adorned with faded posters, old ads for cigarettes or local beer, relics from another era. The Hlaing River flowed alongside us on the right, its surface an inky void, reflecting nothing, not the lights, not the moon if it were out. I didn't like this stretch much. It always stirred up memories I'd rather bury. 10 years ago, my wife Mai vanished on a night like this. She worked at a garment factory near the port, often coming home late. One stormy evening, rain pouring in sheets, she caught a taxi but never made it back. I waited until morning, then called the police. They searched for days, combed the riverbanks, questioned neighbors, checked port cameras. No body, no trace. They said maybe the floodwaters took her, but I knew the Hlaing wasn't always that vicious. I was strong, with long black hair and a habit of wearing white longies to work. She had a bright laugh and loved sharing dreams about river spirits. After she disappeared, I pushed it all down, focused on driving to forget or maybe to search in some futile way. Back to that night, I checked the rearview once, out of habit. Her face remained the same, pallid hair obscuring half of it, gaze locked on the river. Nothing unusual. But then, a small detail caught my eye. As the streetlight filtered through the window, her shadow didn't stretch across the back seat. The leather was dark and glossy, but empty of any human silhouette. I blinked, chalking it up to the angle or the haze. The car splashed through a puddle, water spraying up with a soft whoosh. "Where are you coming from?" I tried to break the silence and shake off the weird thought. She paused, then said, "From the shadows, by the river." 5 words, flat and emotionless. I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, the river looks pitch black tonight. Careful not to get soaked." No response. She just stared at the water. The surface was an endless black, like a hole in the world. The air in the car felt thicker, heavier, pressing in. My heart picked up a notch, but I told myself it was fatigue. Years of night shifts play tricks on the mind. We'd been driving about 10 minutes when we neared the old bridge, a rusty iron span over a narrow river branch, avoided by locals at night due to all sorts of rumors. I pulled over and turned. Here we are. That's 5,000 Kayat. She didn't speak immediately, just opened the door and stepped out. Oddly, the door made no sound, no creak, no click like it swung in a vacuum. She stood on the roadside under the yellow lamp. I looked closer, and my stomach knotted. No shadow. The light beamed down, casting elongated shades from the pole and my car. But she was like a cutout from the darkness, no outline on the ground, no reflection in the nearby water. "Sister, the fair," I called, voice wavering. She turned, hair shifting slightly to reveal deep, bottomless black eyes. "No need, already paid." 3 words. Then she walked away, melting into the shadows by the bridge. I sat there, hands trembling as I lit another cigarette. Not a ghost, I repeated to myself. Just the light, the rain fooling my eyes. I checked the back seat in the mirror. Empty, no wet spots, no scent lingering, as if no one had been there. I drove off, trying to forget, but the memory clung like damp fog. In the days that followed, unease settled in. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by dreams of her standing by the river, whispering indistinct words. I'd wake at noon, sweating, questioning my sanity. To calm myself, I started probing my driver buddies. We gather at a tea stall near the port, smoking and swapping tales. There's Yukiar, an older guy with silver stubble and squinty eyes from years of smoke. I mentioned it vaguely, asking if anyone had picked up strange fares. He smirked, exhaling a cloud. "You met the Shadowless one, Thura. I've heard the stories for years. Woman in a pale longi, long hair over her face, never says more than 7 words, doesn't touch anything in the car, and most importantly, no shadow under any light, no reflection in mirrors or water." A chill ran through me, but I kept my cool. Yushia leaned in, voice low like a campfire ghost story. "Us drivers have an unwritten rule. If you pick up after 2 a.m., look in the rear view only once. Glance twice, and you'll see something you shouldn't. Those who encounter the Shadowless one often lose loved ones at night, and she returns to be seen one last time, not to harm, but to remind us of forgetting." The others nodded, chiming in. Some claimed multiple sightings, others whispered of drivers who vanished after ferrying her. I laughed it off as superstition, but doubt crept in. My thoughts circled back to Ma. It disappeared near here, after heavy rain, in her white long hair. In dreams, she stood shadowless by the river, murmuring, "See me one last time, my love." I changed my routine, avoided the river road at night, stuck to busier downtown areas. But fares dictate routes, and sometimes they led back there. I hung an extra mirror in the car, but avoided using it much. Passing the hauling, I'd feel a presence in the back seat, a cool breath on my neck. The night rain's smell now evoked fear, musty, mixed with the river's fishy tang. I confided in my brother, but he dismissed it as stress, urging rest. I tried, but the nights pulled me back out. Then, another night, around 3 a.m., rain falling again. I was on the river road despite myself, and there she was, waving from the shadows. My heart pounded, but I stopped. This time, I'd observe closely. She entered, sat back, door closing soundlessly. "Old bridge," she said 3 words. I drove, gripping the wheel tight, checked the mirror once, pale face, veiled hair, didn't dare a second look, but curiosity kills the cat, right? Nearing the bridge, I glanced again, and my own shadow was gone. Everything shifted after that. I still drive nights, but now I question it all. Is my shadow real under the streetlights? Or have I been erased from this world, like the forgotten, they say? All drivers who've carried the Shadowless one lost kin at night. Those spirits return not to hurt, but to be glimpsed one final time before fading forever. But who are they? My wife, or me, in some other form? I don't know, and maybe you shouldn't either. If you're ever driving late in Yangon, by the Hlaing River, remember, look in the rear view only once, because the second time, you might see or not see something that makes you doubt your very existence.